Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to our Open Up live talk show. My name is Sivam Velaidam, and I'm the president and founder at VoiceAmen 360. VoiceAmen 360 is a non-profit organization founded in 2020 in London, Ontario, Canada, dedicated to supporting men and boys through life challenges. We align with the International Men's Day movement and its six pillars, which promote the well-being of men and boys worldwide. Open Up creates a safe, inclusive space for people from all walks of life to share their life journeys, challenges, and triumphs. The program airs on Sundays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, featuring one guest per episode. Before I go further, I want to review our disclaimer with you. We would like to remind you, everyone, that Voice of Men 360 is committed to promoting peaceful harmony in all our interactions. The views and opinions are shared by our speakers are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of Voice of Men 360. Please note that our content is not a substitute for professional or medical therapeutic advice. If you are struggling with the personal challenges, we strongly encourage you to reach out to qualified expert. For questions or concerns about today's episode or any of our content, feel free to email us at info at voiceoman360.org. Today we have an amazing guest, Dan Griffin, um, author, speaker, trainer, consultant. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you so much, Sivam, for having me. It's great to be
Absolutely.
here.
Great pleasure to have you. And also, this time I want to take a moment to thank Jordan to introduce you. Probably in the next few minutes, we're going to discuss the changing male socialization and dichotomy of male intimacy and man rules, male trauma, the Center for Healthy Masculinity, of course. Welcome, Dan. So, tell us about your personal journey, recovery, fatherhood, and relationship. How did led you to think this work, though?
Yeah, I mean that is that's a there's a lot to that question because I've been doing this stuff a long time, and I'm married 22 years, and I have a 16-year-old daughter, and I've been thinking about masculinity and my masculinity since at least as I was a senior in college, so 1994. And, I think the biggest thing for me was that starting around middle school and high school, I just had like this voice in my head that wouldn't go away, that that I really felt different from the other boys and men, and I just didn't know what to make of masculinity. I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know what kind of man I was. I had this internal kind of question of if I even was a man, and that prompted. I mean, that was in the back of my head throughout high school, and it was in the back of my head in college, and then I actually got to explore it academically in college and realized that there were other people who were asking similar questions and had similar concerns and challenges. And this is before I even got sober. And then once I got sober, um, it was such a stark difference in how men in 1994, 1995, how men express themselves in the 12-step culture versus kind of larger culture, dominant culture. And so I just was like intrigued by that. So I ended up doing a master's research interviewing men in recovery and talking to them about masculinity. And it turns out that it was the first of its kind of research, qualitative research. And then I ended up getting my master's degree and then moving to Minnesota because I was awarded a fellowship to train at a place called Hazelden in the States, which is a pretty well-known and prominent institution. So I was given that fellowship, and I was like, I can do that for a year, and then I started talking to people at Hazelden about my research and about my master's, and they loved it, and they thought somebody should do something with that because nobody is. And it just kind of became this ongoing thing. So I, to be honest with you, after Hazelden, after I did my fellowship and I worked there for a little while, kind of ran into like a couple of bumps employment wise. And I started working at our state court administrator's office, the Minnesota Supreme Court in Minnesota, and working in this area called treatment courts or drug courts, but they're now called treatment courts or recovery courts. And I loved that. And it was 8 years of my life. And but the ideas from my master's would not go away. And they were impacting me more and more in my own personal life as my wife and I were getting ready to have kids, as my wife and I were in our relationship, and I was making all kinds of mistakes in that relationship and wondering what the hell is happening and all this sort of stuff. And so I decided to write a book. And I wrote my first book, A Man's Way Through the 12 Steps, and it's all about the intersection of 12-step recovery and masculinity or male gender socialization and kind of how those two work together or don't work together. And then it's just been this ongoing kind of piece. And so much of my work overlaps with all the lessons I'm learning as a man in recovery and as a husband and as a father. And so there's kind of this symbiotic relationship.
I can see a lot of connections there, but remember, everything happening for a reason, right? So, what I was thinking, like, it's sometimes we feel lucky because some people, those kind of situations or learning experience, you in your early age. Even nowadays, a lot of people is struggling with a lot of questions, right? So I believe it's a some sort of gifted or lucky that it came to you in early years, and then you keep working on that, right? It's always there in you. I'm glad to hear that, and also that led you to work or help a lot of people, I believe, though, in the last 20, 30 years, right?
I hope so.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So that's one part. What were some of the biggest lessons that you learned about masculinity through your own struggles? You mentioned a couple of them, but
yeah,
experience. So.
Well, I think one of the big lessons I learned about masculinity is it's not true masculinity. Like, men have an experience of masculinity, and then we have what we project or what we kind of say is masculinity in larger culture. But the truth is that when men feel safe enough to tell the truth about their experience, it's all over the place. They have insecurities about their masculinity. They have some confidence about their masculinity. They have some confusion about their masculinity. They have, wondering kind of, what am I supposed to do in this situation? What am I supposed to do in this situation? Oh, did I do the right thing? Like, there's this whole internal experience that men rarely get to express externally, because part of the man rules is that we have to have all the answers, and we have to have it down, and we have to be confident, and we have to be able to show up, without regret. And so I think that's been a huge lesson is I have to constantly remind myself when I'm interacting with men and they're projecting a certain way, I have to remember, like, oh, but this is not likely their internal experience. It's just what they're projecting to try to have some safety, It's what they're projecting to try to kind of feel some, confidence or, whatever it is. And I do it too. And so it's like, so I think that's been a powerful lesson. I think the other powerful lesson is that due to my experiences growing up, there is a whole kind of negative masculinity that lives inside of me that often comes out that is not who I am or reflective of the man I want to be. And so I have to remember that it's in there, which means I have to pause before acting a lot of the time. And if I don't, I often will make mistakes. I often will end up with my foot in my mouth, needing to make amends to somebody because, I've been a dick, to put it bluntly. And so I think that's a huge lesson. The idea that it's like, I can tell you the man I want to be all day. And I could write down on paper the man, that at my best I am. That does not prevent me from failing to show up as that man, much less often than it used to, but still, it still happens. So.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you because the thing is, every single one of us, it doesn't matter age, of course, different age or stage, we have different challenges or struggles, not only internal but external too, right? The external factor I'm talking about, environment could be, or family, or any other circumstances, right? So many, the way we grown up in the society, right? The society, on the other hand, it's also the external factor. It's putting a lot of pressure or a lot of things on our shoulder, right? So that's one of the reasons too. I'm pretty sure, like a lot of men, or all men, we go through some sort of a cycle, though, right? It's repeated after and after. Um, so, how has male socialization evolved over the past few decades? What do you think?
Well, I think it's very interesting, right? So I do this exercise where I have people name, what's called the man rules, right? In fact, you and I can do it right now. I can just say, what are the rules for being a man, Savam? What are the rules that we grow up as boys that tell us what kind of man we're supposed to be? And so let's do that right now. Go ahead. You answer that question.
Say again.
Answer the question of what are the man rules? What are the rules that we grow up with that tell us what kind of man we're supposed to be?
Well, being positive, and then listen to them, and then you don't really show your personal emotional challenges. Those are the things, and then of course, tough enough.
Yeah,
Those
be tough.
things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, so I do this with audience. I've done it for years,
right.
right? And I have them name the man rules, and it can go for a while because there's a lot out there. But the very common ones, the number one that I get, right,
Hmm.
just first, like 99% of the time, is don't cry,
Yes.
right? So don't cry, be tough, don't be weak, don't be vulnerable, don't show your emotions other than anger. Sex is the vehicle for intimacy. I mean, we could go on, right? There's a whole be in control, be competitive, always win, always have the answer. Women are supposed to be the ones who care about relationships. Any number of things. We can name 30 more. So I ask that question to young guys, and they'll give me the exact same answers. And yet, in our society today, people are telling you, "Oh, but those boys don't. We don't raise those boys the way we raise the men." And it's true, we don't. We don't raise the Gen Z and the millennials the same way we raised Gen X, that's me, right? And even older, the boomers. And now we got Gen A, the whole Gen Alpha crew coming up, but they're not quite old enough yet. But what's interesting is any number, if I meet with those young men from any of those pockets, they're going to give me the same rules, but it isn't the same. Male socialization has changed, and here's where it's changed. It's become more relaxed. I don't know if you're familiar with the American show Scrubs, but that show came out in, like, I want to say 2005 or so. Okay, that's 20 years ago. And in that show, there are different depictions of masculinity almost generationally. And JD and Turk are best friends, but JD is like a very emotional guy and he's expressing himself. But this had to have been one of the first times that a TV show depicted such varying degrees of masculinity, and in particular, a masculinity that was like so much kind of more emotional and relational and softer, quote unquote. So there's much more permission for men today, my generation included, much more permission for us to relax on the masculinity. It's literally what I called in my master's thesis, relaxed masculinity. And at the time, it was identifying how men express themselves in 12-step culture. Now it has permeated and it's in our culture as a whole. However, and this is, I think, the key, right? However, internally, as I talk to men, and you probably experience this as well with the men that you work with, when I talk to the young men, whether they're 16, 26, 36, 46, there is an incredible amount of confusion inside of them. They don't know who they're supposed to be. They don't know who they're allowed to be. They don't know what kind of man they can be with their girlfriend or their wife and be accepted or be laughed at, be rejected, put in the friend zone or something to that effect. There's, whether you're, identify as straight or gay, doesn't matter, because there is still there is this confusion inside. And part of the confusion comes from the fact that we're still just not having enough of a conversation, guidance to men about how to show up as men. And so they're just kind of, we're figuring it out. We're kind of sorting our way through it. And if you don't have other men in your life, you don't necessarily know what you're doing. So you might know that it's a little more relaxed than your father's generation, but you still don't have like a core. You're not rooted in who you are as a man, and you're not rooted in your identity. And so you're not like super comfortable with the behaviors or the thoughts that you have internally or whatever it is that kind of constitute the full makeup of you and your masculinity. So that's kind of my thought about how things have changed over the years. I would say the overall arc is positive, and there's an incredible amount of confusion that I think creates a lot of distress amongst men.
So it's one way is relaxed, but at the same time, a lot of struggles and pain or challenges going in their head every single day, looking outside or even with peers. It's a lot of confusion, of course, yeah. And certainly, if you look at the last probably 3-4 decades, it's still there, right? It's nothing really changed, but at the same time, they are going through a lot of situations. I would say life challenges too. Why do you think? Why do traditional man rules often prevent men from experiencing deep intimacy?
Well, I think that, this was one of the things I discovered through my research. And then as I expanded on my research and wrote some other books, because I wrote A Man's Way Through the 12 Steps, and then I wrote A Man's Way Through Relationships. And when I wrote A Man's Through Relationships, I was thinking about men's relationships. It was very interesting to me because I saw this dichotomy, and it's still nothing we talk about for the most part, but I think it's fascinating, right? I'm a sociologist at heart. So I think in systems, and I think in ideas, and I think in, that kind of stuff. So we have the man rules. Don't talk, well, not, but like, don't cry, don't be emotional, don't be vulnerable, don't ask for help, don't compromise, don't be weak. Okay, so we have those. Then on the other side, we have the elements of a healthy relationship, or the behaviors that we expect men and women and anyone to engage in a relationship. And they are diametrically opposed. They're opposite of one another, right? Because in a relationship, you are invited to be emotional. You're expected to be emotional. You're expected to be vulnerable. You're expected to show some weakness. You're expected to ask for help. You're expected to compromise. You're expected to communicate. You're expected, you know what I mean? So it's like these two are contradictory to each other. And yet this is what we have all the practice with. And this is what we have no practice with. And then we get into a relationship and we're like, holy crap, how do I do this? And that was certainly my experience. And with the best of intentions, I found myself constantly flailing in relationships because, the thing about the man rules and those kind of constructs or those behaviors, at some level, they provide safety. And that's a really big deal, because when you're going into a relationship, if you're going to seriously venture into a relationship and intimacy, it is vulnerable and it's unsafe. And so you start to feel unsafe. So where do you go? You go to what gives you safety. And then it becomes this dance, right? And I've watched it happen with hundreds of men, but we don't name it. We don't talk about it. And then I'd start talking to men about it, and they're like, oh my God, yeah, that makes complete sense. That's my experience. That's what I've been doing. And I do this stuff. But then, and I think this is another important part of it, Savam, is that if I am vulnerable, if I am emotional, if I am allowing to show weakness, that is vulnerable. All of that is its own vulnerability. And with that, it brings up a lack of feeling safe. And for a lot of men, when we don't feel safe, that can trigger past childhood trauma. And so then now we're in a relationship and our past childhood trauma is being triggered and we don't even realize that that's what's happening. And then in order to get safe, we go to the man rules. And then the next thing you know, we've gone from being vulnerable and emotional to being a dick, to yelling at our partner, to trying to be strong and tough, shutting down. I mean, any number of things, depending on what your trauma response tends to be. But I mean, it becomes this really, really painful dance for a lot of men in our relationships, all in our quest to have intimacy. And there's some men who are just like, I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to be in a relationship and I'm just going to give half measures and I'm just going to hope that it's enough for my partner. And for some partners, it's enough. They're codependent enough, or they grew up in a home where that's enough, where they're willing to accept really that kind of mediocre relationship. But for folks who want the real deal, the real relationship, the real intimacy, it's it can be challenging. It can be quite challenging. I mean, I know many people, many men for whom it has been challenging, and I know myself, it was incredibly challenging. And those 22 years of marriage, I mean, I could write my own book based on that, and just the incredible mistakes I made, not knowing about trauma, not knowing about attachment issues, and just seeing how all of that showed up in my relationship.
Well, a lot of things in that. Those people, I mean, whoever is watching on the other side. But at the same time, I want to ask you one question based on your experience working with a lot of men in the last 20 years. So, and also when you watch your own personal circle, like your friends and families and things like that, one is how much as a man is open himself to share and talk about his personal, any challenges, personal issues. At the same time, talking to sharing with other people, like let's say life partner or uh,
Yeah,
marry either female or male, but especially let's say life partner. And partner means like let's say the female, how much they are woman on the other side, how much they are willing to listen, accept
sure.
with open hands, open mind.
Sure. So, one, I'll remind you, right, that I am in 12-step culture, right? I'm in recovery. And the reason why that's important is because that whole culture is predicated on intimacy and communication and sharing kind of what's going on inside your life. So from that perspective, um, I can tell you what's true for me, but it's probably not the norm. Okay. I have an incredible group of men that I connect with and share openly with. I have a life partner who I share openly with. And I have what's called sponsors, in recovery as well, who I open up with. So for me, I've lived in a world of kind of men opening it up to one another for decades. So now I know that's not the standard, but I will say this. I will say this. At a minimum, if you're a man listening to this and you're thinking like, oh geez, well I can't do what Dan does. I mean, like I'm not in 12-step culture, and I don't even know how to open up to people. Okay, fair enough. If you have a partner, my partner and I, and we learned this from very good friends of ours, my partner and I have a weekly check-in. And all it simply is one of us talks, the other one listens. When that person talking is done, the other person says, this is what I heard. Then the person says, that is correct, or you missed this. And then the other person goes. And the expectation is that you're going to just share openly, but there's no feedback. There's no critiquing. There's none of that, right? So if you don't have something like that in your life, get something like that in your life and learn how to do it where it's just speaking and listening, and that's it. No feedback, no commenting on what we shared, anything like that. That's one thing, right? Every man, my wish for every man is to have other men in his life that he can open up to, that he can talk to about something other than sports, weather, or news. And it starts by just simply talking about one thing, because if you don't have experience with it like I do, then it's foreign to you. You're just not sure, how it's going to go or what it's going to be like, and that's okay. But do it. Find that friend that you have that you've had for years and say, "Hey, I just want to talk about what's going on in my marriage." And actually, here's the interesting thing, Savam. I think that's one of the things that's changed. There are a lot of young men these days who do have some men that they're opening up to and they're talking to, but they don't necessarily have the skills for navigating some of the challenges that they have. In other words, there's a term that people use called co-signing somebody's bullshit. And what that ultimately means is if you came to me and said, hey, man, Dan, I am so sick of my wife and she is just like a total pain in the ass and she's doing this and she's doing this and she's doing this. And I'm like, you know what, Savam? I hear you, man. You know, I'm not a fan of your wife. And she, you know, I hear what you're saying and this and this and this. And if at no point do I say, yeah, I get it, Savam, but what are you doing? Like, what's your behaviors? And how are you reacting to her? And what are you doing? And what are you saying to her or not saying to her? Like, if I don't kind of go into that space of trying to help you get out of the problem and into the solution, then it's, you know, then it's co-signing each other's bullshit. And then that's really just not that effective. But the check-in and having other men that you can just begin to open up to and you just take baby steps to do it could change your life.
Absolutely, I can see that it's not always a life partner, but trusted person. If you have, that's very very important
Yeah.
to at least 2 3 people, because you never know. Because when we look at their situation, okay, you know what, at the time you can reach some of them, then it's very unfortunate. So it makes sense to have more than one person, trusted person, right? Because sometimes or a lot of times uh, people, or especially men, they don't want to share, but at the same time they don't have the trusted space without
Right.
without judgmental or anything, you know. So that's block the their limitation, right? So it's very unfortunate, but at the same time, as I said, we have to find a people, at least they can listen for sometimes, right? It's the same thing if that person is in the situation that they can tell us, they can share with us, so we can listen to them, right? It's help each
Yeah.
other, right? Absolutely, yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Listening and talking, just like I was talking about with the check-in, listening and talking, and that's huge. It's huge, and we're not necessarily trained as men to do that, but we have to learn how to do that if we want to have meaningful relationships. And you know, like there's a lot. Look, there are a lot of men suffering, and they are keeping that suffering to themselves, and they're actually keeping it from themselves. They don't even know they're suffering. They just think the problem is everybody else, or the problem is this messed up world, and the problem is this, and the problem is that. But they are hurting, and they don't know how to be with the hurt. The only thing they know how to do is externalize it, because that's what we tell men to do, right? But you keep externalizing your hurt, you never get better, and you keep pushing people away in various degrees. So,
Exactly. So it's a way of the proper way of channelizing your emotions, right? Otherwise, it's going to not only hurt yourself but also hurting other people too. You never know, right?
yeah,
It is very true, but at the same time, it's a challenge. I believe mostly men, we don't have the right tools right now to um, face our life challenges, life struggles. So that's the main problem, biggest
yeah.
problem, I believe, though.
And,
So
and 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 the good news is, right? What did you say? You said we don't have the right tools. Well, that's right. We don't have the right tools because we weren't given the right tools, and we
mhm,
had a lot of our tools taken away.
mhm.
But guess what? If you don't have the right tools, you can get them because they're tools, right? It's not about some biogenetic thing and how we're made as men. It's literally just having the right tools. So go to the hardware store and say, these are the tools I want. And if you don't know what tools you want, then talk to somebody who has the tools that you want and ask them how he got those tools. I mean, it's not rocket science if you genuinely want to improve and change your life. It is about the tools. And it's, it is work. I mean, it takes work. You can't just go and, go to the hardware store and buy a tool for $5. I'm a big believer in therapy. Big believer in therapy. And I personally think every person in Western society, because our society is so messed up,
Well, I think
should have the therapist.
yes. I think one way is that, as you said, if you are really seeking genuinely, if you really want to change your life, actually, it will come to you. So one step at a time, like at least, okay, you know what you think, and you search for a tool,
Yeah,
it will come to you, or it will take you to the destination. It will take you to the right tools.
yeah,
I would say.
yeah.
So
When the student is ready, the teacher appears.
exactly,
That
that's
is what you're saying, right? Yeah.
exactly,
And
yeah,
and there's some truth to that.
yeah,
There's some truth to that, but there's also like the thing of like take action. Doesn't have to be the right action. Just take some action to get out of the kind of stuckness that you're in, whatever that might be. And that's uh and then as you kind of play around with that stuff, then the teacher appears.
exactly. Instead of complaining or pointing other people and blaming others, you just
Yes.
change your mindset, change your thinking pattern, so that will help you to get
Yeah.
proper help, I would say. So, what does a truly healthy version of masculinity look like, Dan?
Right here. No, I'm just kidding. Um, no, what is healthy masculinity? I mean, this is really important to my work because people are often like, well, so if you have the man rules, are you against the man rules? I'm like, nope, never said that, never will say that. I'm against the rigidity of the man rules. I am against that, but I'm not against the man rules. There are times to not be weak. There are times to not be vulnerable. There are times to be strong and tough. There are times to be a protector and a provider. So, what healthy masculinity to me is, and sometimes I refer to it as conscious masculinity, right? Because it's driven by consciousness. It's driven by just reflecting, like, what kind of man do I want to be? Because Savam's idea of masculinity is probably different than Dan's idea of masculinity, which is probably different than Jordan's idea of masculinity, which is probably different than my friend Edwin's idea of masculinity, which is probably different than my sponsor Erwin's idea of masculinity, which is probably, so it's kind of like healthy masculinity is not a prescription. It is not something that you just like the strict kind of, I mean, there's people who want that. There's people who want that, and there's people who will do that, and there's people out there doing that, saying like this is what it has to look like. But I don't believe that. I believe we have to find the skin that fits best for us, and that really works best for us. And what that is ultimately is the man that we want to be. And so it does come with reflection. It does come with this conscious kind of exploration of masculinity in all different areas. What kind of man do I want to be in a relationship? What kind of man do I want to be at work? What kind of man do I want to be when I'm playing sports? What kind of man do I want to be in my band? What kind of man do I want to be going out to the grocery store? What kind of man do I want to be to my daughter? What kind of man do I want to be with my wife? What kind of man do I want to be in my spiritual path? Okay, great. And what does that look like? And then we strive for that. We strive towards that, right? Knowing that we will always make mistakes. But to me, like healthy masculinity is it's just living in this positive conversation about who we want to be as men, and how we can serve others, and truly take care of ourselves.
Well, one thing I want to, since you have been working with many men in the past number of years, when we talk about healthy masculinity, I'm kind of like under impression, or are we putting too much pressure? Because let's say a lot of men, they are going, they made some sort of mistakes, or here and there, ups and down. Everybody has it, right? So when we say healthy masculinity, is it some sort of negative spin, or a kind of too much expectation? Or are we putting for those who went to, different direction, and
Yeah.
they couldn't come back, or they're hardly come back to
No, I understand that question. It's a really good question, right? I would say, I think no. I would say no, that we're not putting on too much pressure, because I am not talking about, and you will never hear me talk about, toxic masculinity. Now, I might talk about the toxic culture of masculinity, which is very, very different, right? Because are men toxic? Well, their behaviors can be toxic, right? And so I think that's part of what you're talking about, Savam, is I engage in unhealthy behaviors at times. I do. I did. I came here. I came to this podcast. I love telling on myself. And I came to this podcast straight from some good friends' son's high school musical, right? And I sat down in the seats, and I thought the seats were general admission, but they weren't general admission. A woman came up and she said, we have this whole row. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well, we've reserved this whole row. And I was like, well, I thought this is general admission. Anyway, but I got an attitude. And then I told her to calm down. Like, and I don't even think she was getting like worked up, but I was just like, calm down. Okay. I'm leaving. And then of course it turns out she's a friend of my friends. So yeah, that was unhealthy. Am I an unhealthy man? No. And do I have a concern about who I am as a man because I did that? No. But it does fall short of who I want to be. And it does, show me that I can still be reactive unnecessarily, because I feel like I either did something wrong or that somehow there's an injustice taking place. And I don't even know. But so in that regard, so the only thing in this conversation of healthy and unhealthy masculinity that's going to break men down is men's own shame, and the shame they carry about who they are, about having to be a certain kind of man or a perfect man and all that sort of stuff. And that shame is theirs to work through. It's theirs to face. It's theirs to let go of. But that shame is the voice that a lot of men have in our head saying, you're not a man. You're not a man. You do something and it's like, oh, you're such a pussy. Oh, you're so weak. Oh, you're not a man. That's shame. That's shame. You're shaming yourself, right? And that's unhealthy masculinity. Why would you treat yourself that way? Why would you ever I've done it for years. I did it. So I would say that's a big part of it. I don't particularly worry about the conversation of healthy masculinity being, something that's going to create unfair pressure or ideas. And the other thing I will say, and this is something that's really important to me, I think it's really, really important that those of us men who care about healthy masculinity, that we stand up and we make sure that unhealthy masculinity is not okay. And there are behaviors that are not okay. And it doesn't mean you're a horrible person, but your behavior is 100% not okay. Being a misogynist is not healthy masculinity as far as I'm concerned. That is a line I'll draw. Being a racist, that's a line I'll draw, right? Using power over in relationships with men and women is unhealthy masculinity. And it's a line I'll draw. So there's also that aspect of it, is I think those of us in the space of really talking about masculinity and trying to help empower men and all this sort of stuff, we have to start speaking more directly against those voices out there of men who are trying to empower men in very, very unhealthy and hedonistic, unhealthy, egocentric, self-centered, misogynistic ways.
Absolutely. Thanks for the clarification, because the thing is, like, a lot of men, especially, struggle or confusion with healthy and unhealthy masculinity. Always, when we say unhealthy, they always think about toxic masculinity, things like that, right? It's easy to connect, but at the same time, they don't have the clear understanding of healthy and unhealthy masculinity, I believe. Let's talk about the Center for Healthy Masculinity. So, how did you start? What starting point? Like, what inspired the creation of the Center for Healthy Masculinity?
It's a brand new organization. I'm super excited about it. I'm doing it with Jordan Smith. We are just totally partners creating this. It is, you can learn more about it on social media. You can learn more about it at the Center for Healthy Masculinity.org. And for us in particular, the focus is on it's a organization that's looking to advocate and improve research on men's health, particularly in the areas of mental health, addiction, shame, and trauma. And we do research, advocacy, training, and community outreach. We are a brand new organization. We have our first symposium in Los Angeles on May 1st from 10 to 3 at the Semel Auditorium at UCLA in Los Angeles. So we're super excited about that. We have no idea where this is going to lead, but other people are excited about it too. And so we'll just have to kind of see where it goes. But that's it. That's that. So far, that is what the center is.
Absolutely. I'm going to display your website and an email address, and also the website for the Center for the Healthy Masculinity.org, so people can see it and then check out and possibly attend the event. I wish I can attend over there. You know, it's a amazing event. I can see that. So, what kind of programs or impact do you hope to have, like, in the future? You know.
Well, so Jordan and I are working on two projects. One is this organization. And so we are going to advocate for better research. I mean, all you have to do, anybody watching this, just Google statistics about men and trauma and men and addiction, or men addiction and trauma and men addiction trauma recovery. Just Google and try to find really solid research on that and see how poor it is right now. And so we're going to be advocating for that. We're going to be doing trainings. I do trainings on this stuff, for years. And so, we'll be doing some trainings. But the other project that we're doing is we are currently looking to raise money to open our own men's treatment program here in Los Angeles. And then we will be expanding throughout California and strategic cities in the United States, and perhaps in Canada and Ireland. So we're very excited about that. That's like a 10, 15-year project. And, we're just getting started with, trying to get the first center open.
Absolutely. Please, the viewers, audience, I just shared that website. You can go ahead and then check it out at the same
Thank
time.
you. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Thing is that please, as he suggested, just Google it and then see what's going on in your own backyard, around the world too. See, a lot of people, they don't have any idea. They just hear the news or here and there, even from their friends or something outside of their network. But you should really know what's going on in the real world, though. Um, let's move on, Dan. So, if men could start opening their hearts and healing their pain, how do you think families and communities would change?
Oh my God. I mean, that's like such a softball question because, I mean, hurt people hurt people. Most of the assholes out there that are men that are doing really horrible stuff and having massive, massive impact on the world, they're hurt and they're hiding behind the man rules. They're armor. They're acting out of their armor. So I mean, if we can open men's hearts, heal their pain, we can change the world. I have every belief in that. I've seen it happen with me in just a very small kind of example. But I mean, I think it's transformative because I watch it happen individually all the time with families, and I watch how families change when men get better. And the truth is, and I say this as respectfully as I can to women who complain about men and complain about men's behavior and complain about the things that men do. And then when we respond and we say, help us heal men, and then it's like, well, we don't care about the men. But I think you do. And if the men don't heal, those problems don't go away. I guarantee you one thing, we will never, ever end violence in this world until we heal men's trauma. So, all right, like, what are we going to do? And how can we do it?
Yeah, that's the we cannot ignore that truth. It's very real concern, or that truth is a truth, right? So
Yes.
you cannot go wrong. I have few more questions, short questions.
Let's do it. Lightning round.
Yes, I have a few
The
announcements.
problem is there's short questions for you, but can I be brief?
Yeah, I do have few announcements. I just want to share. I will come back to you. Okay.
Yes.
Give me a few minutes.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah. So far, so Dan is sharing his experiences. At the same time, I just want to give you some announcements to you guys, though. So open up. It's every Sunday, Eastern Time, 7 p.m. It's a live talk show. You can join and share your life journey. Of course, you can discuss a number of things that it will impact somebody's life on the other end. They can understand from this different lens. Another time, a live talk show in the morning, 8 a.m. on Sunday. And then a monthly men's group meeting only for men by men. Second Saturday of every month from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. through Zoom. No recordings. Please join through Zoom. The link is available on our Facebook page and group. We just finished the one just today, last night. It was amazing. There are no limitations on gender, age, nationality, or ethnicity. People from all walks of life can participate in any of our shows. If you like to be a guest on any of our shows, or if you are interested in joining our organization to help us directly or indirectly, please reach out to us. We would love to work with individuals, professionals, experts, community organizations, associations, corporations, government officials, and businesses. Our phone number is 226 289 8784. Again, 226 289-8784. Email address is info@voiceomen360.org. Website www.voiceomen360.org. And the social media, Facebook, we have a group and page. Join our group page to see our daily activities. Please invite your friends to join. Other social media platforms are Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok. On YouTube, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have over 600 episodes on various different topics, so you can watch it. Please support us. Let's go with the rapid questions, Dan. So, one myth about masculinity you wish would disappear today.
Yeah, I think the myth that I would most like to is that how do I say this? Men don't care. Period. That's the myth.
Right. Absolutely, I agree with you. What is one thing every father should teach his son about emotions?
That they are a part of us, and either we learn to own them or they will own us.
Yeah, absolutely. What does a healthy masculinity mean in one sentence?
Know yourself.
That's it. Yeah. What is one habit that can immediately improve a man's emotional well-being?
I'm going to give a couple. So meditation. Okay. Meditation is one. And then the other is reviewing your day at the end of the night.
Right.
And
Nice.
always including some feelings in that review.
Right. Absolutely. What gives you the most hope about the future of men and boys?
There's a lot of hope. There's a lot of hope. What gives me the most hope is the fact that these younger generations are figuring out what kind of men they want to be outside of the man rules.
So I want to ask you a kind of like a personal question at the same time. It's a general to the public too. So when you go back and then think about the last 20 years or so
Yeah.
working with men and then seeing their life transitioning, from A to Z or zero to this much, how do you feel, or any particular incident or any story you can share, um, I never ever thought this one, but I wouldn't say, but from that person where he was, and then now it's
Mm.
remarkable.
There's so many actually that come to mind. I mean, there's one guy I know, Brandon, and he was afraid to walk out of his apartment practically, and then he was like getting better. He was doing some work, getting sober, and then he was like, you know what? I think I want to go to Chicago. I said, okay, well, you got somebody to go with? He said, I think I'm going to go by myself. So I went from Minneapolis to Chicago. It's not that far. Then he's like, oh, I think I'm going to go to the East Coast. Comes back, does that. Then he's like, I think I'm going to go to China and live. And then he went to Africa. And then he went to Myanmar. I mean, it's like, holy cow. Then he went to Chile. Then he went. So it's like to watch men's lives get big. That's a beautiful thing, right? I've watched so many men, who couldn't even be in a relationship, who, were scared to death of relationships. I've watched them, get families, get partners. I mean, that's That's a beautiful thing. I've watched men do really, really deep trauma work, and make peace inside themselves, not just on the outside. And yeah, I mean, like there's so many examples of men that I feel like so blessed to have known. And I really thank you for asking that question, because it causes me to reflect, because I take it for granted, because it's so common these days for me to know men and work with men whose lives are changing and transforming in, lots of ways. Maybe the transformation is that after cheating on their wife multiple times, they decide to stay in the relationship and commit themselves to the relationship and being of service. And all of a sudden, the relationship is vibrant. I mean, it's like
Well,
that's the kind of stuff.
couple of things actually when you answered one line or even very short answer, one word. It's everything connecting back with those things, right? Even healthy masculinity or um, men do care because otherwise they wouldn't come and then do deeper work. They really want to do something in their life, right? So some people they want to achieve something, but some people it's all about mindset, right? At the same time, it's not only helping others. At the same time, it will help us. It will give us some sort of satisfaction or fulfillment. It's both ways. Not only 1% or 2%, but a lot of men. I would say, not only men, their network of families or other people too, right? So it's
Yes.
whatever
Yes.
we can improve or whatever we can help others. Absolutely, it's
Yeah.
not we had to do what the whole 8 billion people we going to change it tomorrow. No, at least we can do whatever we can,
No.
right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
um, Dan,
Absolutely.
I really appreciate all your time and energy and
Thanks for having me.
advices. Absolutely, I already shared your website
I
uh,
saw that. Thank
for
you.
healthy masculinity and your email address and also your personal website, so people can go watch and check it out. And if you have any questions, please reach out to him. So the 20 years, I even uh, if you can just quickly run those maybe one or two lines about those books. Whatever the main books you want to just share with you.
Well, sure. Thank you. I'm so I think they're all listed on my website, dangriffin.com. But A Man's Way Through the 12 Steps. If you're in 12-step recovery, this book was written for you. If you identify as a man, and I can promise you, you haven't read anything like it. A Man's Way Through Relationships. If you're in recovery, but even if you're not in recovery, and you're in a relationship, or you want just some guidance around being in a relationship, this is a great book, and it has questions for you to answer at the end of every chapter that I think are very helpful. And then the other 5 are all curricula. There's the Helping Men Recover curricula that has been around for 15 years and is very popular around the country and internationally. Then Amazing Dads is the first trauma-informed curriculum for dads. Healing Men's Pain is a men's trauma curriculum. And then Amazing Moms and Healing Women's Pain kind of go with those two. So those are the 7.
Absolutely. So one thing I want to add is that when we talk about men's issues or books for men or related to men's issues, not only for specifically we are talking about men, but at the same time, women they can, ladies, you guys can read it and then you can understand those situations. You can relate to
Sure.
those circumstances. It can be your life partner, husband, or
That's true.
your father or lover or brother or cousin.
Yes.
you can understand a lot of things. So this way, not only men, because most of the times men, they are not really interested to reading, but at least if you read and you can share those things, hey,
Yeah.
just read the book, and then you can suggest absolutely.
Women constantly buy my books for the men in their lives.
Exactly.
And I've gotten over the years many wonderful emails and comments from the women who read and are like, oh, I got an incredible amount of empathy. So yeah, it's a great point.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. All right. Thanks
All
a lot,
right.
Dan. It's over 1 hour. I'm really,
Yeah.
really surprised, but at the same time, really thankful for you, and also for Jordan, because he's the one actually suggested, referred you. So thanks a lot. Thank you. See you next time.
Sounds good. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Um, so one thing I want to tell you guys, though, that please share this episode with others. Of
Yeah.
course, you watch and then share with others too.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
It'll go in my newsletter.
Absolutely. Thank you. See
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Okay. Bye-bye.